All right, everybody. I am going to share this on your portal for the Miracles, Magic, and Coffee show. So look for that in your email. And here we go. I think Dr. Tom is going to be on. So we'll be with him in a second, hopefully. All right, I think that looks good. Yeah, let's just see if we're on. So I don't see him. If he's not on, we will do some of our own stuff. Let me go ahead and record this just to make sure we have it in case it doesn't connect up with YouTube, but it looks like it is. And look on YouTube. So if anybody's on YouTube, you can type in the chat. You can also type in the comments, and that the comments stick around. So so that's awesome to put a comment in the comments and let us know what you might like to see change in your life. Just let us know, because this is for you, and let's just see what happens here. So let's see if Tom is going to be on. I'm not sure if he is. I'm going to turn on the light so we're all family and I can be kind of casual here. I'll show you my slippers. These are kind of cool. They're from the North Shore of Vancouver, a company called Padrag. Okay, so I'm not sure if Tom's on, but hopefully he is. If he's not, we are going to do some great stuff today. So what I'd like to do, Tom has this way of working. I've learned from him for the past, since 2000, February of 2000 was when I first met Tom Jim Matteo, and I met his wife, the late Sharon Jim Matteo. She was a PT and a integrative manual therapist, had her PhD in integrative medicine. And Tom, physical therapist, then a chiropractor, then a naturopath, and an acupuncturist, and then also the co-developer of integrative manual therapy with Sharon, and Sharon's daughter, Ayelet, who is a physical therapist and now has her PhD. And her work to help people get over autism was amazing, is amazing. I've taken her class from her years and years ago, and I've seen miracles. And so since Sharon's passing a few years ago, I've been connected with Tom for years, but we've been getting stronger and stronger connection. He helped us a lot when Jen was pregnant with Baden, and he told me what he saw energetically, and then I worked with Jen, and it's been quite a road. And one of the things that Sharon did when she was with us, she told us she wasn't here to be our guru or to make many copies of her. She was here to help us get healthy enough so that we can get on our own surfboard. That's what she would say, healthy enough to get on our own surfboard so that we could take our own wave and do what we were here to do. And she used to tell me, she told me actually in class, she singled me out and said, when Ralph gets where I am, where we are now, we won't be here because they're going to be farther along and we're all growing and evolving. So it sure has come true. And I've noticed that all of us integrative manual therapists that came through the ranks with Sharon and her training and Tom, we've all gone to do our version. And so, and then even Tom has taken the work to a whole new level. And so he's got something called the Golden Heart, which I think is so cool. And so many people now are connecting to that. And I think maybe there's some sort of consciousness shift happening in the world, And so Tom's version is doing something called the Golden Heart. Just looking at all of our comments, see if anybody's commenting about anything, what you would want to change or see change in. And my Qigong master calls it, the Chi field and connecting to that force, that heart. And my matrix energetics practitioner, teacher, Richard Bartlett, talks about staying out of the head and going into the heart. And David R Hawkins, the late David R Hawkins, talks about you haven't read his book, Letting Go, it's incredible. And the about the author section is his description of his path to enlightenment, to awakening. And he died just as the book was finishing. So so I guess he got there. But he talks about it, how when he had reached this state or had noticed this way of being or what he truly was, he would just notice this energy coming from his heart, you know, out towards accidents and out towards gang fights and out towards people that had come to him for healing. And there was people that hadn't talked in years and were catatonic and all sorts of just like terrible prison that their body was in. And then had miraculous healings. And he talks about how it was just his heart that was somehow there was a communication going on with whatever that is, and then people could be different. So I want to connect us up with that today, whether Tom joins or not. But let's do it now, because I was playing in the field. I had about 30 minutes or so before our session today, and I thought, I could do some work, I could do things, and I thought, what, I'm going to just play in the state. So I'm going to drop us all into this state, and you can just notice whatever you notice. Total perfected essence. And then Tom last week talked about, let me just make sure he's not trying to get on. I'm going to go to my Gmail. We talked about last week a way to start to access this this golden heart energy. I don't see him on there either. So he just might have had something else to do today and I missed that email or something. So he talked about a way to connect to the golden heart, and he talked about putting one hand on your heart, like the Pledge of Allegiance, and one hand on top of your head, and then just hanging out there. And so how about if we all start with that, and then I'll play with this pattern for us all, and you can have a connection, because a lot of this work is a transmission. So while there can be, and you can put your hand on your heart, your hand on your head, while there can be words that can be useful, it's not quite the words. There's something that's carried along in the words, an energy maybe, space, a frequency, information. There's something that's carried. It's like a carrier wave of information. And that's why it's cool to hang out with me, cool to hang out with Tom, cool to hang out with my Qigong master, Ming Tong Gu, cool to watch old videos of Cher and Jim Matteo, read books like Letting Go with David R Hawkins, read Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, because you're hanging out with them and hanging out with us. And there's a transmission that happens. And it's not the words, it's something else. So one way that Tom talked about was put one hand on your heart. And I keep just checking over to my participants to see if he's logging on. And one hand on your head. Oh, yay, there's Tom. So, well, now that we're connecting up with this golden heart, we're going to connect up with Tom. And we're going to see what he wants to talk about. Should be starting pretty soon. Unmute. Just go grab him here. Okay, we should be rolling.
Hey,
hey Tom. Good. How's it going?
Good. Crazy week and a half, huh?
Yeah. I was reading a really good book. One of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, talking about the some Zen story about this big boulder in the way of somebody's path, and the Zen master is watching all of the people, the students, try to go past this boulder, and they give up, and they give up, and they give up, and they get disappointed, and they get frustrated, and then one guy goes and finds some lever and moves it, and then there's this big pot of gold underneath, and so it's the idea that, the obstacle is actually your training, or what's right there is the gold. So it's kind of cool. And so I was warming up the group today, doing your golden heart to the head, and talking about how Sharon used to say, you know, her thing wasn't to make, you know, mini-me's of her, but to get us all healthy enough to get on our own surfboard and get where we're going to go. And so it just feels like so many people these days are talking about, like Ming Tong is talking about the heart, and David R Hawkins in his book, he just passed away in 2012, but the book that he finished just as he was passing away talks about the heart and the information you get. And I'm meeting with a naturopath later to talk about muscle testing and having a way to discern truth for yourself. And so I just opening it up to you, anything you want to talk about anything, whether it's this, and I want to let people know about your Zoom sessions and all, but yeah, what's on your mind, and what would you like to share?
Okay. Well, I had two people contact me on how they enjoyed the golden heart to the eyes. And how they felt some good results with that. So I feel that that's a really good contribution, that we're talking about this connection that we can have called neurofascial processing. And that was one of the first findings we found in the 80s, to make connections. And we actually used to have a therapist that would just do that for the hour, just make one connection and hold it. Wow. And we found how that profoundness was happening. So there's a book called the Body Wisdom Book, Light Touch for Optimal Health, that you can find on Amazon, that Sharon authored, and I was the editor on it. And it really goes into 40 different types of techniques, from headaches to knee pain to low back pain. So this is a really nice self-help guide into understanding the deeper process of everything. And it does get on a mind, body, and spiritual connection for the person to understand that we could have changes on so many different levels. So just the bioscience of it is that, you know, liver, when you take your golden heart to your liver, we're actually promoting detoxification. And another way is to take it to the thymus gland, which would even support the immune system. So in this world of the coronavirus, I would say that if you did the golden heart, one to the eyes again, and then the second place would be another 15 minutes to the thymus area, another 15 minutes to the liver, we'd have detoxification and the immune system really supporting us, and we'd get some of the anxiety energy out of our eyes and our head at the same time. So that would be a good recipe for success. The last one I like to offer is then putting your hand on your bladder, which is right where your zipper line is, and that will help fluids flow out. So, you know, if we got anxiety and we start to get that going, and then we bring it into the liver, or detoxification, then we bring it into the bladder, or the thymus, and then go to bladder. We got the immune system kicking out stuff, we got the liver kicking out stuff, and that's always a really good first tool for supporting 99% of a lot of things from the immune system.
It's something I do every night. It's easy enough just to do a couple of spots while you fall asleep. And I had a client this week that she's been doing a lot of really good work, and her back started hurting. And what I noticed was she was just detoxing a lot. And so that heart to the bladder could be a good way, just as you're clearing a lot of stuff, just to let it go.
Yeah. And then, of course, having lots of water inside your body too. My only suggestion is don't get city water from the city taps. Try to get spring water would be the best solution.
Yeah, I gotta just say, everything happens for a reason. But I remember my good friend Joe, who now lives in Sedona, was from Portland. When I was getting my my Kangen water machines, I was so excited in San Diego because one of our friends said, buy these, they're going to be great. And we thought, well, that sounds good. So I quit drinking spring water and I started using this Kangen machine. And Joe said, you should call Tom and just ask him what he thinks of it. And I thought, nah, I'm going to do it anyway. And you know, retrospect, maybe that would have been a good idea to call you, because I started using the source of the water, even though it was going through a Kangen water machine. was the San Diego City water that had the fluoride. That led to like a few years of very tough times. So yeah,
Right.
reaching out to you is a really cool thing to do.
Yeah. So, we're hopefully everybody's trying to take it a little bit more. We're 4 to 6 weeks into this staying at home. So I would like to also emphasize, what have you done for your health lately? And you do have, hopefully you have some extra time at home that you can start to take care of yourself. Like, make sure you either drink enough fluids or go for a walk once a day, get out into the sunshine. And it seems like we're going to be here for at least another 4 weeks. So
Wow.
hopefully that will get you into a pattern change that will stick with you for more health on the other side of it at the same time.
And so while people are at home putting their hands on these spots is a good way to watch Netflix or to watch a video or just to hang out and look at the view. That would be good. What one of the things that's so important for humans, for animals, for anybody, like when they had the Nazis bombing London, the Londoners thought, let's move all the new babies off site away in another city and we'll take care of them with nurses, but we can't let them be bombed. And even though they were physically safe, they started dying because they didn't have their moms and that physical touch and that connection. And so I'm noticing people are getting really weird right now by not hugging and touching and being around people and just feeling like everybody's, somehow going to hurt them, and watching people on trails like in fear walk 10 feet away and hide up in the trail while you walk by. It's kind of weird. Anything, I know this neurofascial process, this one hand here, one hand there, is good for physical, and but also anything about using this golden heart to get us through some of these human connection things. Because I know you and I, you especially connect to Sharon, even though she's gone. And so even if people aren't around us, there's ways to stay connected. And my Qigong master Bing Tong, when he left China, he had to, because they shut down the medicine hospital because the government said no more groups anymore. And they shut down a big healing center, and they actually put Dr. Pang Ming, under house arrest for many, 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 many years. Just recently he got released, but even so, it's like the practitioners are worried about being around him because they think he might be put under house arrest again. Yet, but Ming Tong has been communicating energetically with Pang Ming all these years. And so during these next, few weeks, whatever it is that there's this mandate to be apart from humans, anything you want to say about a connection or it's like this, it seems like we need a human connection.
Yeah, it's true that I feel like the Zoom and the FaceTime are pretty good to at least start to see people. And to, human connection, we all live by touch. So hopefully you're not stuck by yourself in this area of holding the space by yourself, and maybe call a friend and chat a little bit is one way to do it. And when you think of somebody, reach out to them, text them and say, hey, checking in, how you doing? Because that type of connection is really something like somebody was thinking about you and you can think about them at the same time. Is really good to do those people. And
one other thing that I noticed just came to me, I had a client years ago that really sad story, but really sad. I won't divulge particulars, but basically he wasn't allowed to see his daughter anymore. And but he talked about what it was like with her and some of the times they had. And he said that every day he communicated energetically with her, even though he wasn't around her. And Jen, the other day, Ben was in the shower and there's a big glass, and Ben put his hand on the wall, on the window, and Jen put her hand there, and she said it was incredible how you could feel his energy. And so, so even if somebody's not around somebody, there's a way to energetically connect. And I have a sense that it's the golden heart is part of this whole thing. Yeah, what do you think
Yes.
about stuff like that? Like some people, I'm meeting with one person, one of my clients, because in person, and then we're going for walks also, because she lives alone. And yeah, it's like you can walk around and see people, but it's just weird. And
Yes.
so yeah, anything about, I don't know if we've the question about that, but let me see if anybody's commenting. But yeah, so it's so important to connect. So even if you can't, hopefully you can text and call, but even if you just think about them, there's something magical that can happen. This feels really big, Tom.
Hmm.
You have such advanced skills to see stuff and put your hands on and change stuff. And yet this technique is really, we don't even have to have skills to do these things you're talking about. Anything else you want to say about how people can access this golden heart energy and
Yeah. Well, going back to remind you that we talked about the connection of the stickiness in your hand. If you put your hand on your chest and you're feeling, just feel how your hand comes on and off your chest, and you can feel your skin and your muscles and your rib cage. And then when we placed our hands on the top of our head, it got to be a little bit more sticky or connected. And to appreciate that and start to play with the game is, in every about 30 seconds, I would try to lift my hand lightly off my chest. And at 3 to 5 to 10 minutes, there's a softer spot where it comes off a little bit easier. So we really talked about the body ebb and flowing into these circadian rhythms. And as an advanced practitioner, a lot of people can actually feel like their hands get sunk in, and it's like a really super thick magnet between their hands and the person's body. And then in another portion, it seems to loosen up a little bit. So we used to describe those as cycles of the body. An example I can give is, remember when the cars used to, when there was cold outside, you start the engine and it revs high, and then all of a sudden it drops down and starts to go lower. I call that like an octave shift. And we found that in a lot of manual therapies, they talk about this connection, pulling the therapist in and then releasing it, and then pulling it in again and releasing it. So the ideal scene is to be able to feel those perceptions of stickiness. And the best time to move on to the next technique is when it lightens up, or there's not a really stickiness in that whole connection there at the same time. And if you keep holding into another minute or two, it will get sticky again, and you're going through these circadian rhythms of cycles. And sometimes I've given this homework for hours and hours at a time. And patients who go and do 20 minutes now, and they check that off, and maybe they had 5 hours of this therapy to do. And there is deep healing on those connections at that point. In the book itself, Ralph, and it's been described by many authors. One of them is Louise Hay, and she wrote a book called You Can Heal Your Life. And there's a lot of purpose and body connections and what they mean, and have feelings attached to them. In Chinese medicine, as an acupuncturist, you learn to hear people's symptoms as emotions at sometimes too. So like the liver was referenced as anger and frustration. The kidneys are about fear. The heart's about joy and sorrow. And the lungs are about guilt and grief. So again, Louise Hay's book on You Can Heal Your Life is a wonderful, because she did her PhD and she wrote this whole list, maybe about 30 pages long, about 200 different sections. What does my left elbow mean versus my right finger versus third finger? And they all have a little bit of an emotional connection to different parts of our body. And another example is a lot of people with knee pain have an issue with fighting authority at some point in their life. And when you talk about how can you release that fight against the battle, some knee pain goes away with those connections. And in the book over here, I can look up, I forgot what we wrote about liver, So let me find my liver connection here and tell you.
I know there's a whole integrative manual therapy course on letting go of codependency and anger, liver. There's the positive version of the organ systems too. Is the liver like path and purpose, or?
The liver is for detoxification, frustration, and anger. The pancreas is about path and purpose. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing in this life or not? The spleen is disappointment in mankind. So, and we're making a huge universal shift in that disappointment in mankind and humanity. Just the way we treat people, how we see people's individualism, and what we take for granted now. And I love the movie, The Green Book. Did you get to see the Green Book movie last year?
No,
It was it won Oscars and things like that, but it was about the 50s and 60s, how Afro-Americans were treated, and also Italians and Irish. And this Afro-American musician trying to go down south, and he picks up an Italian from New York City, and you could just see the prejudices of and behaviors and customs that were there.
Oh, I'll watch that. That sounds good.
Yeah, and it was just a reflection that how they portrayed the Italians in New York City is basically how I recognize my cousins and the behaviors there. And cultural diversity was different back then. So I feel that we really need to bring attention now to open our hearts a little bit more. And the Golden Heart is sort of resonating that on a physical manifestation, as we need to wrap our consciousness around the kindness that we have to bring into this world.
That's so cool. And you get get information that lets you know where to go look in the body or in the system from the Golden Heart head connection.
Yeah. And then we go back to the references of, oh, what's that elbow mean to that person? And what's that wrist mean? Or what are they holding on to? Or so we always try to integrate the purpose. Symptoms are not just symptoms anymore. You don't have a wrist pain just because you've been typing too long.
What does this elbow mean?
Yeah.
Is there a sense like when you're touching those spots and you ask that question, that the palpation, the sensation under your hands and in the body shifts, and something shifts even before you have a conscious understanding? Or do you need a conscious understanding to know what did that elbow mean? Or can it just drawing attention to it with this kind of way of looking shift it? Or how does all that play out with you?
Well, another person that authored some books, John Upledger, who was the inventor of craniosacral work, called it a somato-emotional release. He felt that bodies held emotions just as much as they had muscle memory of different things. So, and I know you took some of his therapies too, and it's been known in the non-Western world that we're more than just our accumulation of body parts. And we do have emotions attached, and we have sadnesses attached. So I have had, when we've done body work releases, somebody remember, oh, that's where I broke my ankle when I was 5 years old. Or we always tell, there's always an elephant in the room story.
Elephant,
So,
yeah.
Right. And that story goes that we were probably 2001, 2002, and one of our great teachers who was up in Massachusetts worked with this woman and was not having success. So he actually asked her to travel down to our Connecticut clinic, and she came in for like a 3-hour slot, and she kept getting a little bit better with us, and she would do it every month. And we did our diagnostics, and her right foot always was like, there's something here.
Oh, I remember this.
Right. And we would keep going back and forth, and when she'd come down, she'd get a little bit better, have some more success. And it took a year of asking, what's in your foot? And one night she had a dream after having more releases of the tissues that were scarred down. And the next week she comes back and goes, I was 12 years old and a baby elephant stepped on my foot. And from hearing that story and being a structural therapist, he goes, okay, so what would 500 pounds stepping on my foot look like? And how would I crush the bones and how would I heal from that? So we stepped back and we put more thought on, okay, we really have to make sure all the bones are moving, all the ligaments are moving. And as we successfully unwound that piece, she incredibly got better. And she remembered some other issues in her life and released all that. And within 2 more visits, 2 more months, she was like, she still sends us Christmas cards saying, doing well, thank you very much. And we always say there's an elephant in the room. And it may take some time. It may take some prodding. It may take, what is the core behind that? What event happened on a physical manifestation, on an emotional manifestation. And it is a great honor and privilege when I do put my hands on people. I can actually feel when it's really going down to every individual cell. And we call that cellular truth. And John Upledger called it a still point. And when the body gets into the still point, we have transitional changes on structure, physiology, physical and mental, emotional and spiritual at the same time. So there are many cultures that talk about this delta state. And it's talked about in yoga practices. It's talked about in many different places. And it's where the human and the consciousness of that human come together, and every single cell changes down the whole process. And you can do that. And you've been trained with your matrix and other tools to recognize that at a distance piece at the same time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had without divulging too much detail, but working on her heart for, we had 20 hours over a week with her, and lots of stuff shifted, and we all went to dinner afterwards, and all of a sudden she started just talking about being a little girl and being a cheerleader, and you could feel the heart space opening up, and her family was looking at her like, you don't act like this. Like she was talking in this like nostalgic way of like when she was a little girl, and she didn't tend to do any of that kind of like reminiscing and it's like just kind of came out. So that's
the cool stuff that rewards you, right?
Yeah. Does it have to come out where it's consciously been aware, like where the person knows, oh, this is from this, or can it just be like maybe it's aware to the therapist, or oh, there was something cool that happened, but the person didn't get the connection and still had a big shift? Or does it need to be is it useful to know sometimes as a
I've seen it all different ways, and sometimes just having a conscious a therapist that can recognize the story and just within their wisdom of unconditional love, that can change everything too.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It can be felt. I remember once I was getting treatment from Michelle in Connecticut, and this was when I was married the first time, and she goes, "Oh, how's the wife?" And all of a sudden she's like, "What happened?" yeah, it was in my tissues. That's cool. This feels really big. It'd be really cool to hear what people feel with this session today, because I feel that still point. There's a lot of magic happening right now. So people can be different just from listening in and watching. And then
and just to remind everybody that we've had some big changes. We had Passover and Easter this past weekend, which are spiritually as relevant as anything else. Then we had the pink supermoon last Friday on this. So there's been a lot of internal reflection on a meditative state that a lot of people this week have come up with some hopelessness and fear that they're going, I feel that this time of quietness, you start to hear the stories that you didn't have time for.
Yeah.
And just to know that those stories are part of your essence and part of your being, and they could be multi-generational. And that's a study of homeopathy, that we're an image of our mother and father for so many generations in that whole story. So it could be our story, our family story, it could be the universe's story at the same time, all coming through us. And we're getting to be more quiet. So the noise, we're getting out of being, we're starting to appreciate what mindfulness means, or hearing the mind chatter versus the cellular heart energy.
Fine. Yeah, I'm writing these things down. This is really good. It's kind of like this work is like homeopathy, but without the limits of there's only 5,000 remedies. It's like the information can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when you notice it, it can shift. So it's awesome that some people have contacted you for a free consult, get some information, let you know what they've noticed. You've been doing some Zoom meetings. What's the best way for people to connect up with you? I mean, once a week, as long as we can, we'll do these. And
Yep.
IMTWellnessCenter.com.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, IMTWellnessCenter.com is the link.
Is the link. Yep. And just reach out whenever you want to. And I do have people answering the phones. We're here to support people, and that's the most direct way to get into talking to me.
Right now.
If you type in info@IMT Wellness Center for the email address, we do have we do give free consults all the time, and start to help people and see what they want, from body work to nutritional consultations to coming down to the office and really experiencing things. So, and then you are a great life coach to help them get back into life afterwards. So,
yeah, I think it's all useful. There's so many ways to help people, and these days it's about. I get a sense of like, what is success? And success, like one of my coaches told me, is like getting what you want in life. And sometimes it's a roundabout way, and you didn't realize it was going to be that, but you know it when you start to play with it, get to it. So yeah, really good, Tom.
Okay, nice to see you, and I'll be here next week if you are. So.
Yes, I will, as long as we know, as far as we know. All right, thank you so much, Tom. We'll see you.
Okay.